Welcome to the Popish Plot. I'm Mike, and this is Apollo 13 and Holy Saturday. Now this is the strangest Holy Saturday I think any of us have ever experienced. But it's also an important historical anniversary. On April 11th, 1970, 50 years ago today, astronauts Jim Lovell, Fred Haise, and Jack Swigert launched towards the moon. Apollo 13 was on its way atop a Saturn V rocket, and Lovell and Haise were scheduled to become the fifth and sixth men to ever walk on the moon. Now, I know what you're saying. Well, 5 and 6, that's not that impressive. Sure, it's not Armstrong and Aldrin. There can only ever be two who are the first two. And ask Aldrin, there's only ever one who can be the first one. But still, in the whole history of mankind, a grand total of 12 persons have walked on the moon, and Lovell and Haise were to be among their number. But, as almost all of us know, en route to the moon, their command and service module, the Odyssey, suffered a devastating malfunction, an explosion which crippled the spacecraft and prevented them from landing on the moon. Now, great, sure, space history, yay! What does that have to do with us? So, think about it. Haise and Lovell had the chance to walk on the moon, and it was suddenly taken away from them. Swigert had the chance to orbit the moon. And again, in the grand history of, in the whole history of mankind, only 24 men have ever orbited the moon. And, Swigert is still one of them. And this was taken away from them. The astronauts spent the next few days in a desperate fight for their lives, and with the full resources of NASA working back on Earth to figure out a way to get them home. Now, the reason why this anniversary is so important to me, beyond the fact that I own a NASA t-shirt, off camera, I've got on my wall a Apollo 11 poster, the iconic image of Buzz Aldrin taken by Neil Armstrong, who you can see in Buzz's visor. I'm a fan of the moon. I'm a fan of the Apollo program. I don't make any bones about that. Attentive viewers may remember, there'll be a link somewhere up here. Thank you, Nate and Jess. We did an episode last summer about the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11 and the first moon landing. I make no bones about the fact I'm a space fan. But I was very struck when I realized that, with all the mass cancellations, that this Holy Saturday was the 50th anniversary of Apollo 13. And I've been thinking about it, and I think it's an extremely apt comparison. They lost the moon. We've lost the liturgical celebration, or the ability to participate in the liturgical celebration of the Easter Vigil. They weren't going to get to walk on the moon. A good friend of mine, Alpha Hotel, was to be confirmed, fully received into the church at this Easter Vigil. And now she'll have to wait till no one can say when. We hope by Pentecost, to be confirmed and to receive the Eucharist for the first time. And speaking of the Eucharist, with the damage to the Odyssey, Lovell, Haise, and Swigert took refuge in the attached lunar module, the Aquarius. Deprived of the holy sacrifice of the Mass, of sacramental communion, so many of us have been forced to resort to watching Mass on TV or our computers. Now, make no mistake, especially any fathers, any of our priests out there who are watching this, I am grateful that you continue to offer the sacrifice of the Mass, and I'm grateful that I have the ability to make a spiritual communion at home. But the Aquarius was never meant to keep 3 men alive. It was only meant to keep 2 men alive for a very short time, up and down to the moon. In the same way, we Catholics, ours is a sacramental faith. The Lord instituted the sacraments to be sources of grace in His divine life. We were never meant to live without them. But, just as the Apollo 13 astronauts clung to life in the lifeboat of the Aquarius, so all of us have to cling to life in the lifeboat of spiritual communion. It's not what any of us wanted. It's not enough to keep us alive forever. But just as the Aquarius's abilities were stretched, and some very smart people at NASA worked very hard to make sure that the 3 Apollo 13 astronauts would stay alive to the voyage back to Earth, the sacrifice continuing to be offered by our priests and our bishops, and the spiritual communion we can participate in, while insufficient and not enough, that is our lifeboat. It will keep us alive until that glorious day when we can all finally be together again, truly together. Now, I'm not one to slag social media. After all, I'm a Catholic YouTuber, and I'm very grateful that we can interact in this way. But we all agree that it's not ideal. In the same way, a humdrum Apollo 13 mission, where everything went to plan and most people greeted it with a yawn, that's what those astronauts wanted. But as the last few weeks have shown us, well, and it's an important reminder, we very rarely get everything we want. But the Lord, in his overabundant generosity, always gives us everything we need. Now, of course, it's the human condition that we often mistake our wants for our needs, and we often don't even know what it is we need, but the Lord does. Apollo 13 lasted from the 11th of April to the 17th of April. The 11th of April this year is Holy Saturday. The 17th will be the Friday within the octave of Easter. So let's meditate upon how truly blessed we still are. Yes, I have been depressed, sad, angry, generally irascible, ever since being cut off from the bread of life. I mean, I'm a daily mass goer, I'm a daily communicant, so the last few weeks have been deeply uncomfortable at best. But I'm still alive, and the objective reality of Christ's resurrection is just hours away. The Apollo 13 astronauts lost the moon, the chance to walk on it, but they still flew in space. Their incredible story lives on, and most importantly, they still returned home to their families. It is devastating that all the liturgies will be celebrated, but we're all going to be stuck in our homes. But the liturgies are still being celebrated. The church will still celebrate. And even as many of us feel confined in our homes, that's an opportunity for us to spend a little more time with our families. So, if you've got some time during the next week, and most of us do, consider watching the now 25-year-old film, Apollo 13, which is an excellent and faithful retelling of the story. Read Jim Lovell's book with Jeffrey Kluger, Lost Moon, The Perilous Voyage of Apollo 13, upon which the Ron Howard film was based. There's a great podcast out from the BBC called 13 Minutes to the Moon, and their second season is detailing the voyage, the perilous voyage of Apollo 13. And just meditate on all that we've lost, but all that we still have. Now, I take umbrage at those who've suggested that all of us took Mass for granted, and well, now you'll finally appreciate it. I knew precisely how dependent I was on the Lord's strength. That's why I went to daily Mass, because I know that I don't have it within myself to make it through this world. And it is still the Lord who sustains me, even as I'm prevented from partaking of him sacramentally. But let's hope that those same commentators who annoy me are correct, that this time away will make us all appreciate anew all the riches that we have in the sacramental life of the Church. We're standing on the cusp of Easter, which means we're standing on the cusp of VEASTER. 50 straight days of videos, which actually, because we've been doing the whole Triduum, is that going to end up to be more than 50? Jess is going to kill us. It's going to be great. So, subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss out on any of the VEASTER fun. Ring that church bell so that you'll be notified each time a new plot is uploaded. Give this episode a thumbs up, because who doesn't love space flight? NASA. And comment below with, I don't know, whatever you want. What's your favorite space flight? What's your favorite astronaut? Do you like Tang? Or what you are doing to make this Holy Saturday still a weird day of anticipation between the death and the resurrection of the Lord. Because let's be honest, Holy Saturday is always a weird day, and we've been in a perpetual Holy Saturday. But Easter's finally here. It's going to be great. So, until next time, remember to live your faith, love your faith, share that love. Spaceflight. I don't have the clapper, so... Of course, I'm using the headphones, so I don't know if you really heard that. I don't know how much it really picks up outside.